All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talkwave. Now it just gets better. I mean, Tom Curran was great. We've got an amazing guest today, Mr. Gerry Lopez. Let's go live with him. Gerry,
Is that working?
can you go vertical? So,
Uh,
now, hey, I'll talk to you upside down all day long.
okay, hold on. I'm new at this stuff, you know.
Hey, and we love you for it. You were just in the spin cycle right there.
All right. Yeah.
Gerry, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to Instagram Live of all things at this phase of your life.
I know. This is all new.
Well, I
So,
appreciate your interest, and especially during this time that everybody's at home, respectfully staying safe. Uh, we're providing a platform of entertainment, and I'm simply going through a Rolodex of my heroes. And I don't know how I'm going to top you. So this is fantastic.
okay. Um, I'm looking a little dark here, but I think that's all the light we got. You know,
That's
we're
fine. You look great. Hey, you look fantastic.
way up here at north. It's gets dark earlier.
So, Gerry, I got an issue.
You got an issue?
Yeah, we got this whole thing going on, but recently somebody stole my belt buckle.
Oh,
Someone
nah.
once, someone once told me that you told him that you took his stuff, you pound him.
I know. Actually, I just watched that. Turtle put it up, and that was pretty funny.
We'll get into that. And there's so many monumental moments with you. I'd really like to just start from the beginning. I'm not coming here as a surf historian. I'm here as a surf fan, as an 80s baby. And I'd love to know where it all began for Gerry Lopez, who became Mr. Pipeline, and how it got from, hey, man, I love surfing, to the pipeline is what matters.
Well, it's a long story. I don't know if we got enough time, but
Let, let's go
for
the highlight bits.
for most of the surfers in Hawaii, especially in my generation, it all began at Waikiki in some form or another. And for me and my brother Victor, it was my mom that took us down there, and she had a couple of students at Kaimaki High that had a surfboard concession. And I don't know if she gave them a break on grades or homework or something, but they let her borrow a couple boards. So we got to go down and pick out a couple boards and paddle out. And she swam out with us. And, that was it. She said, get ready. And she turned the board around and shoved it in. And that was the beginning. And, it was pretty magic from that moment forward. And that was 62 years ago. And it's been magic ever since.
So you started in town and ended up in country. At what point did you say, wow, there's a 7 mile miracle of world renowned surf, that we all know now, but it really began maybe during that time that you started surfing as a kid? Did you get to watch the beginning of Pipeline being ridden?
No, I mean, we were town guys. The country was pretty far away. And, actually, the two youngsters that spent any of their youth out there was Jock Sutherland, whose mom lived right there, Guns Reef, and then Jeff Hackman. You know, his dad moved out there, and I mean that was really for Jeff, you know, already in high school. But I think my first time going out to the country was, oh, I was probably in the ninth grade, you know, and the only place we think about going was Reef when it was really small. And, you know, we'd go look at Haleiwa and Sunset. And, Pipeline there wasn't much going on there back then. And I know it was in my sophomore, I think I was probably 14 years old or so. A friend of mine and I, Chamberlain, he was my surf partner. We were headed out to go to a class picnic in Aula. And is that your phone?
Yeah, keep going. I'm at my parents' house, Gerry.
All right.
Bring us to Haula. Keep going.
Well, we went to Haula by way of the North Shore, you know, and we drove. This would have been the winter of 63, 64. And for some reason surf was really small that winter. And I mean, I remember there was a surf magazine that, you know, the harbor team had gone over there. Rich Chu was a great harbor team rider, and he came over, and I remember the title was Chu's Island Tiny, because it was small surf. So anyway, Tommy and I were headed out there. You know, we drove through Haleiwa, drove by Chun's Reef, and he had Pipeline in his mind. He wanted to go there. So we drove, you know, down and pulled up in the empty lot. It wasn't a beach park back then. It was just an empty lot. And no one there. I mean, there was no one there. Either way on the beach, there wasn't a soul. The houses were all quiet. And, you know, there were these little tiny perfect waves. And the beach was big because there hadn't been wells. So it was pretty beautiful. I don't know if you've seen that beach summer when it's big. It's the sand moves a lot. Pipeline, so it's clean. It's beautiful. You know, best sand in the world. And dragged our boards. We both had Wardy surfboard, and we got down there and little peak at the pipeline. It was, I don't know, head high, maybe slightly overhead. We were the only guys there. We paddled out. And, you know, those longboards, we couldn't make one single. I mean, waves stood up way too fast. Those boards were way too straight, you know, no. Every wave we just pearled. You know, frustrated, we gave up. We just let the boards wash in on the beach, and we were body surfing. And we saw somebody coming down the beach with a surfboard, and he was wearing a coconut hat. And he paddled out, sitting on his board with his coconut hat on, Doc Sutherland.
Wow.
And we hadn't really met him, but knew who he was because he was, you know, probably the best young or one of them in Hawaii at the time. And man, he just, like, you know, took the place apart. And so we swam out our boards and paddled back out. Of course, ate it again. he watched, and he he gave us both a tip. He said, if you take off at an angle, you might have a little more chance. And that was, really the key, because, we were used to reef or town where the waves were softer and not steep. And taking off at an angle on a steep wave is the way to do it, and that was it. And we got pretty jazzed. We made waves, and then we had to leave because we were supposed to be at the class picnic. And I remember asking Doc, you know what time it is? Nobody had watches on that. Jock looks up at the sun. Oh, we're like 14 years old. And he goes, it's 10:43. Okay. And so we go, and so we went in, and Tommy watching his car, and we looked, and it probably took us maybe 3 or 4 minutes to get in, and it was like 10:46 or 10:47.
No way.
I mean, we were both all the way, because we were supposed to be at the class picnic at 10, and so we were and we wondered, did he know what time it was? But Jock was like that. He was like, I think he was from outer space. He knew a lot more than most people knew. Certainly more than us. Still does.
So Gerry, this is so awesome to hear. Your first wave ever, and let's call you an adolescent. How much of a time span was it from learning how to angle at the pipeline to being on the lightning bolt board, riding your first, let's call it a real pipeline wave? And when did the addiction take you over? Because on that stretch, you had those options of Waimea, Sunset, Haleiwa, and Pipeline, like you said, but you focused on Pipeline. How did it go from being that kid that almost was late to the picnic, where that rush of adrenaline got a hold of you and it was it?
Well, it was a process. I mean, life is a process, and it was a long process, but it really started to happen for me at the Pipeline in late 67, early 68, when Dick Brewer, this is a whole nother long story.
We have time, Gerry. We have time.
Brewer, Brewer was in 67, was working for Bing Copeland, and he was building the Bing pipeliners. And really at that time, all the great young surfers in Hawaii, Jackie Everly, Kiki Spangler, Jimmy Lucas, Roy Mesker, Mike McPherson, Reno Avalera, who was, young, they all rode pipeline. And most of them were just production pipeliners. Jock, on the other hand, and Jeff had, custom shapes from RB, from Brewer, that had the Pipeline label on them. And, Jock had these two beautiful pipelines, and he used to loan, he had a 9.5 and a 9.4, and the 9.5 was the one that he came pretty close to, certainly gave Nat a good run for the 66 world titles in San Diego. Everybody talks about how Nat swept that. Well, it was a pretty close fought heat, and Jock came in second, right behind Nat, and he rode this pipeliner that had black and white checkered slip check nose. Uh, of course, Nat had that beautiful, just carving, tourney style of surfing that no one had really seen back then. It was more posing, nose riding. David the King. Uh, Jock was pretty good at all that too, and he was uh, had these two boards. The other one was this 9.4, and it was kind of a sleek down version of a pipeliner. And my buddy Dusty and I would drive out to North Shore. This would have been in early 67. Because in 66 to 67, I, went away to California to go to college and still all longboards. And the pipeliner was coming into being. And when I came back that summer, all the good guys were riding pipeliners, and, the World Cup had happened. And so Buddy and I, when winter started, I go back to school. I wanted to stay out a semester, which my dad said, "You're a fool because you're going to get drafted." And I said, "Well, I just want to surf." And so Buddy and I would drive up to the country, and we'd stop at Jock's house. And, to this day, I can't believe how generously and unfailingly every time we showed up would loan us his 9.4. Back then, of course, we were built a lot stronger than they are today. And we were really, really careful with that board because, we'd never go to Rocky Point or anywhere where we lost the board, because that's way before leashes, that it would, go on the rocks and, heaven forbid, get a ding, and have to take it back to the dock, not in the same shape that he loved it. So we were always really careful, and sometimes pipeline, but mostly we go to Velzyland left. And one day, my turn on the board, and I was out there riding it, and I just loved that board. It was just sleek and thin, and it went really good. It was a 9.4, and all the pipeliners, they had the foam offset T-band stringers with the stringer down the center, and it said Bing Pipeline. I was riding it going left at Velzyland. Buddy was a goofy foot too, so he always went left. Most of the good guys would go right at Velzyland. And Brewer paddled up, and so we got some waves together, and he said, "How do you like that board?" And I said, "This is the best board I rode and seen and touched, and this is the best board ever." And he goes, he turned around to catch a wave, and "Well, come to Maui and I'll shape you one." And he rode a wave and gone, and I went, "Wow, I didn't think he even knew who I was." Like nobody. And I went in and I told Don, and he went, "Well, you better get a blank and go." So actually, I went with Reno. We both went down to Surfline Hawaii, and Fred Swartz would sell these reject, second spark blanks that he would bring in. And Reno and I each got a blank. We got a flight to Maui. We hitchhiked from Kahului with our blank, and pack them or anything. And got to Lahaina, and Brewer had just, he had left big, kind of in a huff, I guess. I don't know what happened. There was some kind of disagreement, and apparently he was angry at Bing for saying all his boards were twisting in this one wall rack. And so before he left, he saw the wall rack, all the, the racks down, left. And then he ended up in Lahaina shaping for Buddy Boy Aohi, who was a great surfer, but kind of a notorious character. And, it ended up, he just started at what ended up becoming the Lahaina Surf Design and Lahaina Surf Design, LSD. So the first board he shaped was for Buddy Boy. The second board he shaped for himself. Third board was Reno's board. And then my board was going to be next. But, the days went by and, my board still didn't get shaped. And, finally, like, days turned into a week and almost 2 weeks. And finally he said, okay, I'm going to shape tomorrow. And so, bright and early, Reno and I were there at the shop. John Thurston, who had worked for Wardy and come over and opened the Wardy shop. And, I became friends with him. And that's when Tommy and I used to ride the Wardy. I had a whole bunch of the Wardy boards. They were really great surfboards too. He had the glass shop, and Buddy Boy had contracted, okay, you can glass all the boards that Brewer shapes. So we're waiting for Brewer to show up, and finally he shows up, and just as he shows up, this car turns, into the there, and drives up, and all these boards on the roof, and a couple of these boards are really strange looking. There were these wide-tailed, deep V, pretty short boards at that time, and the board that Reno got a 9.8, and that's what I wanted to do. 10-foot board was like standard for the time.
Wow.
And so the doors open, and out steps Bob McTavish, Nat Young, Russell Hughes, and the two Whitson brothers, John and Paul. And, they come by to see Brewer and see the shop and talk about surfboards. And, he smoked a couple joints, or Buddy Boy had powerful ganja. And they pulled these deep V, they were the first Australian shortboards, the wide-tailed deep V boards, and they showed them to Brewer. They didn't look like they, maybe in small ways they probably worked pretty good, but in waves in the country, that the tails were like, wide, like, I don't know, 15 inches wide or something. That was just the tails. They looked almost like the old plant shapes from the early wood boards, before fins and all that, as far as the outline went. But they had really nice tapered rails, and the tails were like super thick, like 5-6 inches thick, with this really deep V. And they had these beautiful fins. I forgot, also was driving the car was George Greeno.
No way.
The fins were, Greeno fins. And they were tripped out on them, and they talked to Brewer for hours. Then those guys wanted to go surfing. And so finally, they got McTavish back in the car, and off they went. And Brewer was all fired up, and we went over to the shaping room, and Buddy Boy and Reno and I go in the shaping room, going, okay, it's my turn. My blank's standing in the corner. It's a 10-6 or something. And Brewer puts the blank down on the rack, and he takes a saw and he saws the foot off the nose, you know. I go, hey, RB, I wanted a 9/8 just like Reno. And he, yeah. And he walks around to the tail, and he saws like a foot off the tail, you know. Whoa, RB, what's up? And he goes, he didn't even like say anything, you know. He goes, don't worry about it, you know. And Reno's over there, he's like giggling in the corner, you know, and Buddy Boy's scratching his head because, you know, nobody's ever had a board that short. It was like 8/6, you know. And I'm going, oh man. And so he starts shaping this board, and it wasn't, you know, I mean, he like had to fit these different templates, and he took his hot dog nose and, you know, drew the nose on, and he got these gun templates try and fit the tail, you know. And I'm looking at this board, and none of us have ever seen a shape like this, you know. And it was like a big teardrop, and, you know, it had a hot dog nose, gun tail. And I was just going, oh man, where's my pipeliner? I wanted one like Jock. And anyway, he shapes this board, you know, and he put V in the tail, and then it was all done, you know. And he goes, take it over to Thurston. And so I, you know, took the blank over, and John comes out of the glassing shop, and he goes, oh, you got your new board finally. And I go, yeah, what do you think, man? And he looks at it, you know, he had these like thick Coke bottle glasses. He's like looking at the glasses, and he looks at the thing, you know, and he goes, interesting, you know. And I'm going, well, you know, it's my first brewer, and, you know, so they glassed it up and left us it, and a couple of days later, the surf came up really big, and out to Honolulu, and I think we ate some acid on the way, and, you know, we got there, and it was like, it was big Honolulu, but the swell was, you know, kind of north. I wasn't, you know, I mean, I'd surfed Honolulu a number of times, but I wasn't real familiar with it yet. And later on, you know, moved and lived on Maui and surfed it a lot. I understood what was going on, but it was a north swell, so it was a little weird, and but it was big, you know. And we all paddled out, you know. It's all jazz. We all had new boards. Brewer had his, Buddy Boy had his, Reno, me, brand new boards, and, you know, right off the first wave Brewer catches, he loses his board. It goes in the cave and breaks in half. I'm just going, oh man, you know. So Reno and I are like sitting on the shoulder, hoping, if, you know, we're not going to lose our boards. And Buddy Boy's just like ripping the place up. To call that Bay, you know, because he had it like totally wired. He was really a great surfer. And finally he loses his board too, and it goes in the cave and it breaks in half. Shit, two brand new boards. And then Reno loses his board and it breaks in half. And I'm looking at it, I'm looking at my new board. I go, no way, man. I caught a little shoulder, tail between my legs, and rode in. And as I was paddling into the boat ramp, because that's where we always used to park back then, Nat and Russell Hughes are paddling out. And Nat's got that, you know, wide tail bottom board, and Russell's board was kind of more conventional. You know, it was shorter, but it was still, you know, like I don't know, 96 or something like that. And Nat spins out on that wide-tailed board on the first wave and loosens it in, and the nose breaks off. It was a stringerless board, so it broke really easy. I mean, it didn't even go in the cage. It, you know, went in, washed in like by the keyhole, the rocks there. The nose broke off, and that was the end of that. And so we're sitting there, and Russell Hughes, you know, it was the first time I met him. I never really knew what a great surfer he was, but he took that place apart. And you know, later on, when I got to spend some time with him, and we talked about that day, he said, "Yeah, it's like a place called Angary that he bought um, back in Australia, and he really he really surfed well that day." So anyway, you know, Reno's board's broken in half. We go, we leave Honolulu, and we go back, and we ran into Tom Stone. He goes, "Hey, there's some big waves at Hawaii." So we go out there, and you know, it was pretty decent, but it was kind of closing out, and you know, I got some pretty good waves on that board, and started, wow, this is really a cool board, man. I really like how it works. Tommy and Reno are both looking. Let me try it. Let me try it. And I'm going, hey, man. And you know, then starts blowing Kona wind, and Tommy goes, "I know this place on the other side of the island that's going to be straight out really good." And so we go, you know, and Brewer and his wife Betty at the time, you know, he had a camper, and we all piled in that camper. We drove over to the other side and went to Kailui, and you know, Tommy told us where to go. And we went through this, like, you know, housing area, and we pull up this kind of rocky cobblestone beach, and he goes, "Look at that." And we look out, and there's like this perfect peak, you know, kind of a short right, but this long thing left. The wind straight shore, and it's like, you know, 8 to 10 feet. It's nice. And but the beach is, you know, I mean, it's like river stones, cobblestones, but it's rocked, you know. It's like what we used to call big sand back. And we go out, and it was really good, you know. Later on, you know, I don't know, it's 5 or 6 years later, or it was a number of years later when I moved to Maui, that actually became one of my favorite spots. It was called Pakukalu. And it was just this great left. And, you know, the guys were still bugging me, especially Tommy, you know, "Let me try that board." And you know, when we got back Honolulu, then I let everybody try. And, you know, everybody went, "Wow, we got to get one of these boards," because, you know, it was like one of the first real short boards of the period. That would have been late '67. And I think it was Betty who came up with the name. She goes, "Well, let's call them mini guns," you know, because that's what it was, kind of. And that stuck. And, you know, all RB's team riders, Jock, Jeff, you know, all guys ended up getting boards like mine, but not for a while, because I had the first one. And I remember going to the Haleiwa Sea Spree had a contest, and it was really pretty good Haleiwa, and it was like a Kona wind days wind offshore, and you know, that was always in February. And I remember all the guys used my board in that contest. I wouldn't like, in the contest. I was kind of a kook, but I had the board, and I remember Jeff tried it, Josh tried it, and Jimmy Lucas, Kiki Spangler, they all tried it. Oh man, and then that was it. They all had to have that. And I remember one day, not long after that, Jackie Eberly, who was like the best surfer of our group, then it was another really good day, Haleiwa, and he had like a 10-6 beautiful brewer gun, big Haleiwa, it was 10-foot Haleiwa, and he goes, "Let me try that board," So switch boards with him. And, wow, he got to ride the gun of his, and he caught a wave, and I didn't see him for kind of a long time, and I caught a wave, and finally he comes paddling back out to the lineup. He goes, "Give me my board back, man. This thing doesn't paddle for shit." 22 inches wide. I mean, I could actually knee paddle it, once I got used to it, but that was, he was older than us, and he was probably the most skilled surfer, probably one of the top surfers in Hawaii at that time. And that was his reaction to that littler board, was it doesn't paddle for shit. So, but that was the beginning. And I mean, it wasn't until years later that they, I don't know who coined the phrase, but they ended up calling it the shortboard revolution. And, if indeed it was a revolution, I think that that first minigun that Brewer shaped was the first shot fired, at least in Hawaii.
That's amazing. And, talk about surfboard evolution, so many shapes and different fin templates and fin placements and number of fins. I'm sure everybody was scratching their heads as it evolved to what I ride today. Was it that board that helped you get that steep angle takeoff at Pipeline to be able to ride and start getting the line to go from point A to point B out there?
Yeah, I actually had a day out at the Pipeline, and it was kind of there were some good days. And I was with a friend of mine, Timmy McCullough, whose dad, they had moved from California. They actually lived on Catalina, and his dad was into making clothes, and he started a menswear store. His name was Ren McCullough, and so it was called Ren's Menswear, and it was like the coolest store, for like nice clothes. And he had a partner named, I can't remember what her first name was, but Spooner. So they started this line called Ren Spooner, and they were the first like aloha print, reverse print aloha shirts with button down collar. They, between Ren and Dave Rockland, who started Surfline Hawaii in January, they petitioned the local government, the state government, well, actually it was the city and county government, to declare Fridays Aloha Friday, so all the businessmen didn't have to wear suits and ties to work. They could wear an Aloha shirt on Friday. um, you know, but it had to be like kind of dressy, a Loa shirt. And that's what, you know, Ren Spooner and Dave Rockland had developed this reverse print that kind of muted the loud Loa colors and button down collars. So it looked, you know, pretty formally always tucked it in. Anyway, his son, Jimmy, and I were the same age. And you know, we were in a surf clubs together, and he was a photographer. And we went out to the pipeline this one day, and I had that brewer. And this would have been like early, you know, 68. And he kept, wow, I'll take some pictures. It didn't look that good, but all of a sudden there was some good waves. So I paddled out, and those were really the first pictures of me at the pipeline. And one of them was a beautiful shot on that 8 brewer, you know, and it was a sequence shot, so you can see the shape of the board as I'm dropping in, and the bottom turn shot. And I'll text you those pictures.
Please.
But you know, that was the beginning of me and my affair with the pipeline, really, because that board really opened the door for me, so to speak. You know, it was a board that fit well on that wave. And you know, before that, the pipeline was, I mean, it, you know, guys surfed it, especially when it was good, but it wasn't a real popular spot. Sunset Beach, that was the place, you know? And that was the main break, and everybody there, all the best surfing happened at Sunset. And you know, Haleiwa was maybe the second best spot, and Pipeline was like, you know, way down the list. And you know, when you're talking about the evolution of the shape of the shortboard, after that 8.6, you know, I wanted to, that board was glassed really lightly, so it started to fall apart. And, you know, I wanted to get another one, but like Brewer was swamped. Everybody wanted miniguns. And so, you know, Buddy Dunphy goes, well, let's just make our own boards.
Yes.
I went, well, how are we going to do that? And he goes, well, you watched them make this board, didn't you? And I thought about it. Yeah, actually I did. He goes, well, you know how to do it. We can do it. And I went, you know, Buddy was that way. And he was, if everybody was going this way, Buddy would always go that way. And so I went, okay. And we had, you know, we each had boards. So we stripped the fiberglass off them, and now we had foam.
No way.
He had some sawhorses at his dad's house, you know, and we set them up on the sidewalk.
Wow.
He shaped his first, and then when he was done, I shaped mine. And you know, I think mine was 7.6, and we went down to fiberglass white and Ken Color. Sweet old man. He owned fiberglass Hawaii at that time. You know, he ended up selling it to Ted Wilson, who has it now. But you know, he goes, okay, what do you guys need? And we go, okay, well, we just made our first surfboard. You know, we need resin and fiberglass and glass. And he goes, okay, how long are they? And you know, oh, well, they're 7.6. And he goes, okay, well, you need one layer on the bottom, probably 2 layers on the top. So you need this much fiberglass. And he goes, this is how much resin you need. you know, this is kind of, this is your sanding resin, you know, when you do your hot coat, and here's some fin rope when you lay up your fins. And, you know, he just like set us up. And then we said, okay, so how much is all that? And he goes, okay, add it up. $15. And Dumpy and I looked at each other and went, holy cow. Okay. You know, so for $15, basically, we made ourselves new surfboards because, you know, we already had the boards. And um, you know, we glassed them up. And I remember Bud had this great idea. So we went down to the Hare Krishna store and we bought these posters, you know, of the, I think mine was the blue elephant. And I don't know what, but, you know, we glassed on the deck and then couldn't wait. You know, we went down and as soon as they were done, went down to Alamoana and went surfing. And we paddled out and all the guys are looking at us, you know, they're tripping out on our boards and paddled out, you know, Buddy paddled out, rode our first wave, came back and he goes, how's yours work? I go, unreal. And he goes, oh, mine works really good. That's the best board I ever had. And in a way, because they were so much shorter than any board we had, you know, and we could do all these turns and do all this stuff that we never been able to do before on the longer board, on that 8.6. And I remember, you know, we surfed and surfed and finally we, and this, you know, guy I knew was waiting in the parking lot and I, you know, climbed out of the yacht harbor there up into the parking lot. And he walks up to me, he's got money in his hand, you know, cash money. And he goes, I want to buy your board. And wow. I looked at him and I looked at the money and I go, how much money you got? He goes, like $80. And I remember how much the board cost me. And, you know, I really liked it. I looked at the money and went, okay. And I gave him the board and he gave me the money. And, you know, I mean, just like that, I was in the surfboard business. Yeah. And, wow, you know, with money, I was able to make another board. And I mean, that's how it evolved. And, you know, as far as the pipeline went, anywhere knew what a surfboard was supposed to look like back then. And so there was every variation of shape that you could imagine. And, you know, we went through a lot of boards, and especially at the pipeline, because no boards lasted very long at the pipeline. You know, you might get a week, or if the, you know, if you surfed it a lot, or, you know, maybe only a day, and eventually, you know, that board would be in two pieces. If you had a good skeg, you'd probably break the skeg off. You'd go home, you know, and you'd make yourself another board and try again. Each one was a big stop to getting a board that was, you know, better than the one before. And each one was like that at that time. That would, you know, 68 going into 69. That the boards, you know, were really evolving quickly, finally coming, you know, towards something that seemed to work really. And I mean, we went through a lot of variation and different shapes. And, you know, eventually it got to where the boards worked a lot better than the ones before.
Was the lightning bolt an airbrush to begin with, or was that a marketing campaign?
No, I mean, lightning bolt, Jack Shippey and I, we were both working for Fred Swartz there at Surfline Hawaii. And, the way it happened was actually there was a surfer shaper, Chris Green, and he was this kid that came from Wyoming, and he was a cowboy. He came from a cowboy background. He came when he was pretty young to Kailua, and he got with the surf, and he was one of those guys, probably like Kelly Slater or maybe yourself, that he got on a surfboard and surfing came really quick to him. I was good right away. He got better really quickly. And he was a little older than us, and he started making surfboards. And when I first met him, he was working at Inter Island Surf Shop, which was one of the main surf shops at the time. There weren't any. Brewer had Surfboard Hawaii, and Inter Island really the main shop. Downing had a shop building boards, but Chris was working there, and then this had been 60 or so. He started working for Fred Swartz, and because he was such a good surfer, his shapes probably evolved faster, and he was a good shaper, than almost anyone else's at that time period. Another guy, Ryan Dotson, was also a great surfer and a shaper, and his boards were really progressive too. His were really nice. Cabell rode his boards, Joey Cabell, for a period before Joey making his own. But Chris was, he was really checked out. And, he made these beautiful boards. He was really generous too and open, and he'd let Dump and I come to the shop while he was shaping, and he'd make these boards, and he'd tell us what he was doing, and because one for him was an evolution too, and they were beautiful, and they were selling them, and Fred Swartz was selling them in Surfline. All I remember Chris saying was, "Don't touch that board, your hands." So, it's right, we always had dirty hands. But a lot of the early shaping that Buddy and I did, we learned from Chris. And so, we were making a lot of boards because all our friends wanted them. And we went through, a lot of shapes. And, at first it was just stripping down old longboards and, shaping out of those, was, you never knew what you were going to get when you stripped longboard. And I think my first power tool was a skill grind that I could grind the rails, and peel the glass off really easily.
Wow.
And then, of course, my second was a Skill 100. And I remember it cost $60, at Gas Pro. And I remember the first thing I did with that plane, I was shaping in a friend of ours' garage, and I was holding the planer in my right hand, and I was lifting up the blank with my left hand, look down it. I let the planer go down a little too far, and it was still spinning, and it caught in my shorts and just dragged the planer right into my leg, cut the hell out of my leg. Had to go to the hospital and get stitches. So I had to learn that lesson. I think it was about 69. The whole, LSD surfboard kind of evaporated, and Brewer came back through Honolulu and going to move to Kauai and um, start Hanapepe surfboard. He asked me, I mean, kind of out of the blue, which was really pretty much a shock to me. He said, "Hey, I want you to come over and go skate, for me and
No
Hanapepe."
way.
And I went, "Kidding? Sure." I mean, what an opportunity. And I mean, RB had the most beautiful styles of shaping. It was like a dance. He'd walk up and down that board and he'd plane that thing top and bottom pretty far down. And then once he was done with the planer work, that was it. Never, he put the planer down, and then it was pure form and sandpaper after that. So I really learned a lot about technique, shaping technique from him. And, to this day, that's the way and I watched a lot of papers, the way they shaped, and, uh, tried a lot of things they did, like, cross cut a lot. Diffenderfer used to do that too. Diffenderfer would actually, put the board on a rail and shape one whole side at a time, then flip it over and shape the other side. And everybody had their own techniques, but I learned quite a bit. That year, the at Hanapepe Surfboard, we made some pretty nice boards. I mean, we made the purple people eater that Jock Sutherland rode in the
People eater.
in 69. And he didn't win that year. I don't know if Nat or Doyle won, but Jock really wowed him. And we made it was a 610 that rode in the 68 World Championships in Puerto Rico, the year that Fred won. He really surfed well in that. Everybody really kind of tripped out on the board he had. So there's a bunch of good boards came up. But that ran its course, and we had to go back to Honolulu. When we got back there, Fred Swartz told me, he said, "Hey, if you want to make surfboards here, let's do Lopez labels," and basically back then nobody had logo. You just wrote your name on the board, and that's it. And so, I had own boards at Surfline Hawaii. Surfline was a great store. It was actually started by Dave Rockland and Dick Metz, because Metz had the Hobie shop in Hawaii. He had tremendous, of course, Hawaii, was a big center. All the other manufacturers, Gordon and Smith.
Do you want to, how's that sun on your face? Do you want to pull the blind down?
Tony's doing that right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get that sun out of your face, Gerry. You had enough of that already.
Pull that upper one up, too. Yeah, the sun's going down. I guess I'm a little long. long-winded. Is that better?
Tell your wife thank you.
There you go. I saw it upstairs.
So anyway, all the other manufacturers, Gordon and Smith, Hanson, especially Hanson, Dewey Weber, Jacobs, Yater, they all were thinking about, well, we could come over and start a shop in Hawaii too, because Hobie's really selling a lot of boards out of his shop. And so it was kind of, Dick Metz figuring it out. Oh, I know a good way to stop that talk. So he started Surfline Hawaii with Big Dave Rothland, and they carried all those brands. And so, he had a lot of success there selling boards because they were all the other, major manufacturers. And so he got me a gig with Don Hansen building, my models for Hansen's. And that would have been in 1960. And Jack Shipley was the man. And, he's.
Okay, guys, we are back. Let's see if we can get Gerry back on here. This is amazing. Are you guys freaking out too? Yeah, I am. Here we go. Get Gerry back on. Okay, Gerry, there's a thing called breaking the internet, and you're doing it right now.
We broke it?
Yeah, because you're so popular and everyone's loving this so much.
Oh, I don't know about that.
It's a fantastic sign. So let's roll with it and see how it goes. Everything's been fantastic so far. I'm sorry the internet had to break off what's been just the most epic story time. We'd love to have you continue. If you got the win for it, you let us know.
Yeah, sorry about that. I can't remember what we were talking about. Oh, the lightning bolt. Yeah,
Yes.
I think we might have to save that for another day, but I was working for, Don Hansen, and then Shipley said, hey, the Hobie shop is up for sale. This friend of ours, Carl Heyer, had bought it from Metz, and he couldn't sell surfboards, so he just wanted out. So he was going to sell us all the fixtures and turn over the lease to us for like nothing, And Shipley goes, you want to take a chance, start our own shop? I went, okay. And that was the summer of 1970, and that's Jack and I started Lightning Bolt.
Wow.
So, that was a whole another process in itself.
So Gerry, you've got the board, you've got the shape, you have locals wanting to ride your boards at the most famed stretch of surf in the world. And then a thing called the Pipe Masters comes along.
Yeah, that was in 1971.
Okay, let's jump ahead a year.
Yeah. So,
how did you guys come up with the competition, the idea? Who was invited?
No, it was Fred Hemmings and Randy Rarick and hold on.
You take as many water breaks as you want.
Talking too much.
Oh, but we love it. We love it.
Fred, who won the '68 World Championships, a great Hawaiian surfer, and he was a year ahead of me in high school, and he was a jock, man. I mean, I think he was the captain of the football team, and he was a tough guy, and he was a great surfer and big waves, and he had the idea that surfing could be a professional sport, just like football, Major League Baseball or anything. So he somehow swung a deal with Continental Airlines, and they, liked his idea. He was going to create this surf contest at this place that no one had ever had a surf contest before. And they gave him some money. And so he created the Masters. And, the first year, I think there were 6 of us invited. I can't even remember who was in it. Me and Jeff and Corky and maybe Jimmy Blears, Billy Hamilton.
Wow.
And I can't hear you. And that was 1971. And I remember every day, we'd go down the pipeline, and it was crappy. It was like north swell and north wind. And I remember going there one morning, it wasn't a beach park. It was just an empty lot. And Corky's sitting there, and he's reading a newspaper in his car, and there's nobody else there. And I walked out and looked at the surf. North wind, north swell, shitty. And I came back, Corky, and he goes, "Oh, it looks pretty bad now." And I go, "Man, I don't think they're going to have it." So I split. I don't know what I did, probably went and got stoned or something. Not thinking more of it. And then that, evening I'm watching the news, and they go through the news, and then they have the sports section. They talk about the Pipeline Masters. Jeff Hackman Masters, and I go,
"No way.
Oh, are you kidding? How did I And what happened was Fred showed up, and the wind had just kind of, got more east, and he was, kind of desperate to run the event, and there were decent waves, Corky, Fred goes, "Where's Lopez?" And Corky goes, "I don't know." A while ago. And he goes, "Well, we got a contest. You know how to get a hold of him?" Nobody had telephones back then or anything. So Mike Armstrong was down surfing, and Fred goes down to the, and Corky there, and he goes, "Who's that out there?" Army was getting some good waves. And he goes, "That's Mike Armstrong." And he goes, "Paddle out there and see if he wants to be in the contest."
No way.
And so that's how Army got in the contest, And, afterwards, Corky took a lot because everybody, years later said, "Well, Corky told him the contest wasn't on." But that wasn't how it happened. Corky and I were, it didn't look any good to me. And anyway, there were still only 6 guys in the contest.
This is 72?
This would have been 72.
Okay.
I'm sure I stuck around, and I was, except for maybe Billy Hamilton, probably the guy who really regularly campaigned the pipeline. Anytime waves, I'd go out. I mean, it didn't even have to be that. Saw one good wave, I'd paddle out. And so, when it was decent, and I think those, that second year, it was okay. I mean, it was big. It was 8 to 10 feet, and there were some good waves. And the other thing that Fred had was he had talked ABC Wide World of Sports into televising the event, and that's why he had to run it first. I don't know if he had ABC that first year, because I think they just gave up and left, hang around doing nothing like this. It was not, they're used to shooting events that you schedule, to start at 2 o'clock on this day, and they were ready and ran, and that was it. Went home, to hang around to wait till the surf got good was not something that worked for them. But they televised next year, and I think Jim McKay was announcer, and so they had it on the Wide World of Sports, and everybody who watched that got to see. And by then all the early surf movies before that, the pipeline was featured usually in the wipe out section of the movies.
Yes.
Because that's what most everybody did at the pipeline, including me. And by 1970, 71, 72, I already had some pretty good pipe boards, and a lot of us that surfed there regularly, and there was just a handful, were starting to figure the place out, and and that was it. That was kind of it. And the great thing about the pipeline compared to that was that it was close to shore, and it was really easy to film. So for like ABC, it was a slam dunk. And if the waves were decent, they could make a pretty good show out of it.
Were you giving post-heat interviews during then too?
No, they didn't have anything like that. They only, Jim McKay would only show up for, well, I mean, like the first 2 years, there was only 6 guys in the whole contest. So it was one heat,
How long was it? An hour over?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not that long, because wanted to get it over with.
And was it best 2 rides, or what was the score?
Oh, it was 3 rides.
Wow.
Back then.
That's hard to do at Pipeline.
Yeah, kind of. But then I think the third year they had 12 guys. And so there was 2 heats and then a final, a 6-man final. And, then they'd interview us. And I think it was in 74. Was that the year they had the Olympics in LA?
Well, you're calling me on the spot on something. Let's just say yes, Gerry.
Or maybe it was 76. I don't know. I thought it was 74. But
look, we'll let it be. History can be remembered how we like it. So what year would you like it to be?
Well, it was a year after they had the Olympics in LA. And
okay. I'm going to get in so much trouble for this.
Mark Spitz won 8 gold medals. And, ABC brought him out to be the announcer. And so I got to be interviewed by Mark Spitz, and that was kind of cool. And then I don't know how much longer ABC stuck around for for that. But, that was the beginning of the Pipe Masters. And, I ended up surfing in like 25 years of Pipe Masters. And,
wow.
I mean, I think the first one was before Kelly was born. And, it was a great run, and it's still, you know, a great contest. I mean, here that was quite an event to have the world championship come down to the final two surfers, you know, and be decided in the final of the pipe match. That was like the real icing on the cake.
So Gerry, I got an idea here. We are
Okay.
we're taking a lot of your energy and time, and I do not want this to end. I don't think the 3,000 some odd people on here right now do. How are you feeling? You want to just turn this into kind of a little series part, and we return for another interview, you know, and not
Yeah,
take too much out of you?
let's do it again. I mean, I can't believe we
Okay.
went over an hour. I'm
Oh,
starting to
you've
lose
been
my
talking
voice.
for an hour and 15 minutes. It's amazing. I'm literally just like, I don't want it to end, but I just have to be respectful and know you've got to be a little winded right now. But why not do it
Yeah,
again?
I'm going to get a lot of crap for talking too much, but that's all right. I'm
I
used to it.
promise you, who's ever giving you crap for talking too much, there's this thing called blocking on Instagram. We'll both do it. It's fantastic. You just block them and they're out of your life forever.
Okay, you can show me how to do that.
Awesome. Hey, Gerry, I know I'm not alone here. You've made today extra special. Thank you so, so much. And I'm excited for what's next. We made it to 1974. How about this? Let's do a preview right now of what we're going to talk about as the next interview.
Well, remember this? This is what you wanted to see.
Yes, it is.
The sword.
That's the sword from Conan the Barbarian.
That's right. So we can talk about that sometime too.
Dude, I love you. You are so cool. This has just been honestly very special. Thank you, Gerry.
You bet. That was fun, Alex. So
I'm happy you're enjoying this, and we'll let the people wait a little bit, and we'll tease them, and we'll do this again, and maybe again.
yeah, I mean, you know, with what's going on in the world right now, everybody caught inside like they are.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about surf because surfers know how to deal with getting caught inside.
Well, okay, how about this? Can you leave us on a little note of, wisdom and advice during this time that's really riddled with fear and a lot of unknown factors?
Well, you know, this is the strangest thing. I mean, this is like the biggest set the world's maybe seen in a long time, you know, and I can't believe that it's caught everybody, every single person inside. You know, usually somebody escapes. That's how big this set is. And, you know, I mean, when that happens, we know from surfing that you got some choices, you know, you can like give up and, you know, you can panic, which is even worse, or you just, you know, kind of see what's happening. You just put your head down, keep paddling. You know, you try and hold position. Eventually the set's going to pass and the lull will come and, you know, then we can make our move and get to the line.
Perfect. Gerry, thank you so much. To the world, we are so appreciative of you. Thank you for everything you do for us today, over these generations of years. We'll see you soon. Much love, Gerry. You're the man. Thank you.
How to end this, so you're going to have to do that.
Okay, I got you on this. Watch this. Ready? It's at the click of a button. Here we go.
All right.
See you, Gerry.
See you, Alex.